Excellent. Wonderful. You know, Cheryl, before you began that incredible journey, which, if we can just sum it up in results from $13 a share to 65, you were a board member looking at struggling Louisiana kitchens. And you had to decide that you were all in. Tell us about making the decision to go from board member to CEO 7 years ago.
Well, I wasn't planning on it, that I can tell you. I thought I liked being a board member. But our CEO left unexpectedly, and the company was really in trouble. And after serving on the committee to find a new CEO, the board asked me if I would take that job. You know, struggling companies, there's not a lot of volunteers to lead. So, you know, I would tell you, though, my calling is business turnaround. And I think I'm inspired by the opportunity to make things right. And particularly for business owners, I'm kind of a crazy zealot about free market capitalism and allowing small business to thrive. And so for me, what looked like a tragedy to most leaders looked like an opportunity to serve. And it's been the best opportunity of my career.
Tell us about your zealous focus on brand. The first thing you did was said, we just have to fix what people think of Louisiana kitchens.
Yeah, no, we were called Popeye's Chicken and Biscuits, and that was a little tired, a little old. And we have a great brand leader named Dick Lentz. He's really the architect of the messaging of our brand. But we rebranded as Popeye's Louisiana Kitchen so that we could forever bring out the recipes and the festivals of Louisiana in our menu and our marketing. And if you've seen any of our advertising, we basically talk about being Louisiana fast, which is we do slow-cooked cooking for your fast-paced life. You know, we marinate chicken for 12 hours fresh in our restaurants every day, cook it fresh when you come in, just like your grandma did. And I'm just betting none of you fry chicken anymore in your kitchen, right? So you need to come out to get it. And so we just reframed what we stood for and the powerful roots of our brand and told people the truth about it.
But you had to rebrand in a time when the country was gripped with obesity awareness. And so you were not the healthiest product. And you've done some really innovative things about giving people options on that. Tell us about...
Well, as I told you earlier today, she said, can I ask you the health question? Well, everyone else does, so don't be alone. Yeah, you know, we do make indulgent food. So does Haagen-Dazs. You know, so does Mrs. Fields. I often say when we make the chocolate chip cookie illegal, I'm moving. So I believe in personal choice and personal responsibility, and I'm not fat, and I eat chicken a lot. And so I really start there because I think we've gotten really a little off the charts about this. We do want to offer you what you want to eat. We do have 28 items under 350 calories. Ladies, 2 chicken tenders and a green bean with no fat or bacon, it's turkey bacon, is 300 calories. Okay, you can eat it every day of your life and enjoy it, and be happy and be thin. And so we want to offer you what you want to eat, but we also are really proud of the fact that we make high quality food fresh for you when you want it in your life. And we're grateful for the opportunity. You know, spicy food, we make a lot of seafood. You know, these are foods that are growing trends. The trends are chicken is growing, fried chicken, not broiled. Seafood is growing, spice is growing, and red beans and rice is amazing if you haven't had it.
Let's talk about loving these franchise owners. So what did you start to do to get love going amongst an executive team to a franchise owner gathering?
Well, you know, as we're taught in our faith, what gets in the way of love is ourself. And so our primary change of heart has had to be to set aside self in favor of the owner. And that's really hard on a lot of days. I want to be honest about it. You know, when our owner comes in and tells us we're crazy and they don't like what we're doing and they don't want to implement the things that we want to do, you know, to deep breath and say, okay, let me think about them. They mortgaged their house and borrowed money to do this. I didn't, so I need to calm myself and listen carefully and learn from them. But it's a constant daily setting aside self to hear what the owner has to say, to hear what the needs are. And it's been over time that listening and learning skill that we've executed has built trust. Stephen M. R. Covey, Speed of Trust, fabulous teaching. Trust is the foundational principle in every relationship in life and is certainly part of business relationships. And so I would argue, I don't have a score on trust, but I think trust has been the turnaround value that has allowed us to be more effective with our franchise owners.
You're going now into an industry time where you're going to have to figure out how to handle the demands that are coming for these $15 wages.
Mm-hmm.
What are you anticipating in how you're going to communicate the reality of what that future
Yeah,
will be?
as you know, there's a firestorm of conversations around everything from wages to work environment to career opportunity, just a large number of issues. There's regulatory issues. The National Labor Relations Board would like to end franchising and make it no longer possible. So there's a real storm of activity. Here's the reframe that I'd like to share with you in case you have a chance to talk about it with anybody. What people forget is that entry-level jobs are an essential part of a capital economy. We give 25% of America their first job. We teach them how to dress for work, how to serve a customer, how to wear a name tag, how to even just show up on time, right? We teach life and work skills to entry-level people. 67% of America will work in a restaurant job sometime in their life because we meet people where they are. We take people into our restaurants out of drug rehab programs, out of prisons. We take people from everywhere, from every situation, and give them an opportunity to get back in the workforce. This is an important role that we play. We develop leaders. We give everyone an opportunity for a career in the restaurant. We don't want anyone to stay at a starting wage. And our managers have good paying jobs. Our supervisors have good jobs. And 80% of our owners who own 6 or more restaurants averagely, which is about an $8 to $10 million business, they started in the kitchen. So I want to remind you of the opportunity our industry provides. It starts at the beginning with a starting wage, but it can end up in an entrepreneurial business that can provide a very meaningful livelihood to people.
You have, been everywhere in the press. There's a lot of material out on you as recently as this week, and because your business is so public. And you have focused on results. We've got a question that came in from the audience. And just to remind everybody, you can text a question to Cheryl and I at 22333. The question is, in addition to the servant leadership that you've been able to have because, or give a platform to, what are the other keys for execution that helped you deliver great results?
Well, I think a CEO's responsibility is 3 things: vision, talent, and culture. So vision is the strategy, the roadmap that you're driving towards. You got to show people that there's a destination worth chasing. My second most important job is talent, and I think this is the answer to your question. I spend most of my time selecting and developing and helping be effective the talent of our organization. That includes the people that work for the company, and it includes growing the capabilities of our franchisees. If you think about it, if I come alongside a franchisee and invest with them in developing their leadership skills, I leave them in a better position to execute our business model. So leadership development fuels execution. Just one tidbit, I spend an hour and a half with each of my direct reports every other week in coaching. Now, they lead the agenda, but we spend a lot of time together. And I think it's that investment we make in our people to be available to them, to coach and develop them, is essential to setting them up to execute well.
And how many direct reports do you have?
7.
Hour and a half each, every other week.
Mondays and Tuesdays every week.
What are some other practical tips you've got for us on managing your workflow? What's your email pattern like? What's your...
Well, I'm currently in a Bible study by Priscilla Scherer called Breathe. Does anybody else need that study? I'm terrible at limits. My weakness is limits, and it comes with, I've got that wiring. I like to think big, and so I can think up more to do than is humanly possible. So the way I really govern execution in my company is to partner with people that are good at it. I tell all my team, I say, I will think up more work than you can do. So please govern me, and let's pace and sequence the few big ideas. So that roadmap, we never let more than 7 to 10 things hit the roadmap because we don't think our organization can ever do more than 7 or 10 things. The real secret is if we do put 7 to 10 on, we do 3 of them well every year, honestly, right? 3 of them get done well because that's the human capability, right? Do 3 things.
Another question from the floor. Do you actually discuss biblical values, principles, and scripture in your company?
Yeah, I get asked that question a lot because everybody, says, what about this public company thing and how do you govern that? I learned this from a missionary that is in a difficult mission field in Nigeria, and Daniel's work is focused on converting Muslim clerics, so he's got a tough job. And so Daniel comes to my house out every November, and I get a chance to pick his brain. And he says, Cheryl, speak in scriptures, never quote chapter and verse. And it changed my life at work because I can say anything scriptural. I just have to be careful about the chapter verse thing. And so I've found lots of opportunities to teach scriptural references. And then, often people say, where'd you get that? Where'd that come from, right? And I'm very comfortable saying where it comes from. I'm very comfortable saying where I come from. And I'm publicly known on Wall Street and in my company as a Christian leader. I'm not in any way afraid of that. But I think we underestimate the amount of teaching we can do in a public environment.
Okay, for all you've talked about capacity, you had a season where you quit work to adopt a troubled child. You've got 3 daughters, 29. She's an engineer at Disney. Your 23-year-old daughter's the youngest editor at the Wall Street Journal.
That's true.
And you stopped work to adopt a girl from Russia. Tell us about that journey and what was going on for you and your husband then.
Well, it was a crazy time. Our greatest period of trial in our marriage and our family life came in the beginning of 2001. And trouble tends to come in groups, as we've all learned in life, right? And so first trouble was I got diagnosed with breast cancer, and it was caught early, and I was able to treat it successfully. But there's nothing like cancer to kind of be a wake-up call in your life. Our children were young. And a year later, I got fired from my job, which is also traumatic, right, for the family. And
what
so
job was that?
I was the president of KFC, and I had...
That was 2 years only. That's why that happened so short.
Yeah, no, I know. It was no more to say about that. But I call it the bed. In fact, I saw one of my one of the team members that worked for me at KFC yesterday, and he said, gosh, he said, tell me about, from then till now. But getting any challenge in your life makes you rethink things. And I told him what I would say to you is that I would not be the leader I am today if I'd not gotten fired. Okay, I would not be who I am today. It's given every bit of conviction I have about how I lead has come from being knocked on my butt, but for the grace of God. But for the grace of God. And so let me finish the adoption thing, because I'm going to be really blunt about that too. So I had cancer. I got fired. I said, well, God's trying to tell me something. He must want me to adopt. I don't know where I got that. I'm not even sure it was a God thing, but that's what I did. I said, I got to go do something for God. And I'm afraid it was a little too much about me. Because I brought a child with a lot of history, an 11-year-old, into our house that had grown up in a birth mother home with drugs and sex and addictions and horrible things. And she's a very wounded child, and I had no idea what I was doing. And my husband was really not all that psyched about it, and even less so after we got into it. And 85% of the parents who adopt these children divorce, 85%. And so, so we had these collision of events, and they just brought us right flat on our knees. And I have learned way more trying to love Katya than she's learned from me, and that's okay. God has used every one of these events to surrender me to him and let me know he's in charge. And he's in charge of Katya. Katya is a 21-year-old today living on her own. She holds down a job, but she is addicted. She's an alcoholic. And I can't fix that. Any type A personalities out there? Can't do anything about it. You know, I can love her and I can stay in her life, and she's let me stay. But I can't fix it all. And so probably the best learning I've had that's helped me in business is to know that God's in charge and I'm not, and he'll make sense out of all this over a very long period of time.
You haven't got a Convene group, but tell us about your spiritual disciplines. How do you equip yourself?
I do have a group. I'm a member of a group called CEO Forum, which is very similar to this group. And we have a small group that meets in Atlanta of about 10 of us that lead Atlanta companies. And I'm very blessed to have that safe place to talk. Now, I'll tell you, and it might be a challenge for you, I'm the only woman in my small group, and I'm really tired of that. We really need to figure out how to support women leaders. And that's not a commercial, it's a need. It's a need. Women leaders are more lonely than men leaders. They have less people speaking into their lives, less encouragement and support, and their churches don't do hardly any of it, right? Because a woman leader is often looked on with disdain by her church. And so I just would share that with you, that I'm very blessed to have been mentored and supported by a lot of Christian leaders, but we need to support women leaders as well.
And so your personal devotional life, what do you like to do? You've talked about your church. You love your church.
Yeah, I love my church. I'm not a rigorous rule person, and so I always worry about this question, like you're going to think I'm bad if I don't do devotions at 7:10 or something. And so I'm not real structured that way. A lot of my worship is through music. I told you I love music, and this morning my favorite song was a spiritual song that just screamed about God walking with me this day. So a lot of worship through music. I'm always in a Bible study because I'm a book learner, so I always am doing a workbook, and I mentioned Breathe to you. And then I have sisters, 2 sisters, and we're all 3 business leaders and all 3 Christians, and that's my little support group. And we share our faith work together and challenge one another. And that's probably that and my mother have probably given me my most grounded spiritual teaching.
Here's a question from someone in the audience. You do come from a family of business leaders. How do you block out business and do family together?
Well, I had a boss about 20 years ago tell me, he said, "What's your hobby?" I said, "Well, I do this job, and I have a family of 3 children pretty much covered, not a lot of hobbies." And he looked at me strangely and said, "Well, yeah, certainly you play tennis or you play golf." No, I don't. So family has been my most important thing outside of work. Every family vacation, now with grown children, we laugh that if we call our kids and say we're going on vacation, they all show up. Have you noticed that? Yes, we do pay, but we really spend every waking hour that they'll let us with them. Memorial Day will be with my new grandson playing on the beach in Florida somewhere, and I really think that's where our love and our hearts are, is with our family.
Tell us about the giving culture at Popeyes. What have you done about philanthropy? How have you led that?
Well, yeah, another thing you may not know about the restaurant industry, restaurant owners give more to charity in their communities than any other industry. It's very giving culture in the restaurant. We're serving meals, right? So you kind of goes with the mindset of being in the restaurant business. So at Popeyes, our franchisees, every one of them chooses their own community thing. On a national level, we're investing in developing future leaders in an initiative called Pro Start. We go into 1,400 high schools, and we teach the skills to either become part of the cooking part of our business, the chef track, or the management track. And our company is funding teaching high school students what franchising is and how they might end up with a career opportunity in franchising. So we really narrow our focus to investing in high school students. Many high school students don't know where they're going in their life, and many still don't go to college, and we find there's a real sweet spot there for us to draw them to a career opportunity they might not have known.
If you could tell us as leaders what you think we could do on pouring into people. I mean, like you're the entry point for all of these students. What would you like to see us develop in their homes, in their parents?
Well, it's interesting. You know, we find we're often end up being the parents and the family in the restaurant industry because the kids that come into our restaurants aren't coming from good home situations. So I would love all of us to work on the family and providing a stronger foundation for people. But I think we also have to face the current reality that most of the children coming into our business aren't going to get that. And so we believe we're in a stewardship to be family and to offer love and concern to our employees and come along and do life with them. And one simple story, a restaurant manager in inner city Chicago, I'm in a restaurant, she's absolutely on fire that day, smile on her face, joy just coming out of her body. And I say, so you obviously love your job. Tell me what you love. And she immediately said this. She said, Cheryl, I'm a teacher, I'm a counselor, I'm a chaplain, I'm a social worker, I teach financial skills, I get kids through high school. She went on like this, so it more fingers than I have, right? She saw herself as being breathing into these kids and getting them through high school and helping people solve their financial issues and sticking with them in troubled times or sickness or divorce and these kinds of things. So again, if you reframe what you do for a living, I believe we develop leaders for a living and get a chance to love on people all day long in our restaurants. And if I can teach that to all these people, I missed one this week. If you watched the news, I had an employee that didn't behave properly.
Just tell us quickly, because the backstory of that is quite interesting. So a pregnant Popeyes manager got let go.
Yeah, well, the headline was, Popeyes fired a pregnant woman after she was robbed. Okay, that was the headline. Okay. And that was the 5-minute segment on the Houston News Wednesday morning. So that was not the story that you would hope for an organization. Of course, because of my public presence, people know the culture and the values of our organization, so we were brought under fire really, really fast in a social digital world. All you can do is classic rules, you apologize immediately and you say you will make it right, and you don't have very long to make it right. The franchise owner was not in the city when it happened. He flew to the city. He met with her personally. He apologized to her for what was clearly a bad judgment on the part of her boss. He reinstated her employment with back pay and more, and he said, what else can I do to right the wrong? Now, what I haven't been able to say publicly, he did everything he could, but we had a wrong. We had a wrong in our jobs to make it right. And so in the Twitter and Facebook, which you can go look up, that's what I said to our public. I said, we've made a mistake, and we are going to rectify it quickly for Marissa, the person who was affected. And she's coming back to work Monday, which I'm very grateful to her for, that she's allowed us to come back into her life. It's a reminder to us of how important it is to care about our people.
Can you tell us the root reason, though, why the manager reacted the way he did to Marissa?
Yeah, and you have, I'm sure, seen these problems in your business where your policies get taken wrong on the part of a young leader. Marissa was running a shift on a Tuesday night, and we have a policy to move the money out of the cash drawer to the safe. And the reason is to protect the employees from robbery. Robberies are all inside jobs in our business. They watch us and they know where the money is, and when they get enough in the till, they rob us. And so the policy is get it out of the till to protect the people. Well, Marissa habitually would not do it, okay? And this was her second robbery, okay? And she's still leaving the money in the till. And so her boss got upset, right? And said, we can't do this. This puts us all at risk. We got to get the money in the safe. And I've warned you, and now I'm going to fire you. Now, that was the mistake part. Should not have happened. There are a lot of other ways he could have responded to Marissa. Could have taken her off the shift, lots of different options. So he overreacted. and it's been corrected. But that's why there's a policy. It's to protect the people from getting robbed. And we just have to constantly, as you would, and if you have a frontline retail environment, you're constantly teaching and coaching people how to handle a difficult situation in the moment, right? One rule should be don't do anything till tomorrow, right? You know, your instinct is, I want to fire, but no, tomorrow we'll talk about that. And so constantly teaching people to take a deep breath.
Cheryl, one of the perks of getting to be your interviewer is you gave me your book. The minute you came in, her brand new book, hot off the press, Dare to Serve. Be sure to talk to Cheryl and look at her blog. And thank you for teaching us. This has been wonderful.
Thank you for
very
having
much.
me. Great to be with you.